The price of one night with her was death. That was the deal. You come at dark. You get the queen until sunrise. At sunrise, the guards take you out and kill you, and the next man walks in past your body. And men took it. That is the part the story insists on. They knew, and they came anyway. Her name is Cleopatra. Pushkin wrote a poem about that deal. Hollywood built half a century of posters on it, and every version teaches the same lesson. The deadliest thing in Egypt was the queen's bed. Not one word of it is true. Nobody who breathed the same air as her ever wrote it. Not her enemies, not the men who wanted her dead. The line about paying for her nights with your life shows up exactly once in ancient literature, 400 years after they buried her, written by a man who never saw her face. She had 2 lovers in 39 years. 2. But hold on, because the body count is real. It is just standing in the wrong room. A boy pulled out of the Nile by his gold breastplate. A girl dragged off the steps of a temple and killed on holy ground. A 15-year-old who ate dinner with his sister and did not see the morning. And a woman who spent her evenings in a locked room watching condemned men die, one poison at a time, taking notes. Nobody died in her bed. They died all around it. And it starts with a severed head in a basket. A head in a basket. Autumn, 48 BC. A boat comes into the harbor at Alexandria. On it is Pompey the Great, the second most powerful man in the world, running from Caesar and asking Egypt for shelter. The small boat that rows out to collect him carries 3 men. Halfway to shore, one of them puts a sword in his back. They cut his head off on the sand in front of his wife, who is watching from the deck of his own ship. 4 days later, Caesar lands, and the court of Egypt presents him with a head in a basket as a welcome gift. He weeps. Whether that was grief or performance, Romans argued about it for centuries. That is the household Cleopatra grew up in. Forget perfume and harps. It was a firm, and the firm's product was dead relatives. Her family had run Egypt for almost 3 centuries. Brothers married sisters to keep the bloodline shut, and then killed each other for the throne almost every generation. One ancestor murdered his own son, had the body cut apart, and shipped the pieces to the boy's mother as a birthday present. Her father lost his throne, bought it back with Roman money, and came home to find his own daughter sitting on it. He had her executed. That daughter was Cleopatra's older sister. Cleopatra was around 14 when it happened, and the lesson in it was not that killing your family is monstrous. The lesson was that losing is. 2 years later, her father dies and leaves the kingdom to 2 children who are supposed to rule it together. Cleopatra, 18, her brother, 10. By Egyptian custom, they are also married to each other. Within 3 years, he has an army. She has been driven out of the country, and the men around the boy are hunting her. Which is why, on an autumn night in 48 BC, the Queen of Egypt is lying in a sack on the floor of a boat. The bag and the breastplate. Caesar has moved into her father's palace. Her brother's soldiers hold every gate and every dock. She is 21. She has no army left worth the name, and she has one idea. Plutarch tells it, and it is not a rolled carpet. The carpet is a Hollywood invention. He says bedding sack, the plain leather and linen thing servants used for hauling blankets. A merchant named Apollodorus ties her inside it, throws it over his shoulder like laundry, walks it past the sentries, past the guards on the stairs, into the private rooms of a Roman general who has never seen her. Nobody checks the bag. He cuts the cord in front of Caesar, and the head of state of Egypt climbs out onto the floor. Caesar was 52, 3 times married, and Rome's most reliable adulterer. His own soldiers marched through the city singing a warning to lock up your wives because the bald whoremonger was coming. He kept his own accounts of what happened that night, and he wrote nothing. What he did is louder. In the morning, he backs her against her own brother. The boy's advisors understand at once what has happened, and the war starts inside the palace. The eunuch Pothinus, who runs the boy king, tries to starve the Romans out from the inside, serving Caesar's men bread swept up off the floor and wine in wooden cups, telling the city that their gold plate went to feed foreigners. Caesar has him executed. The fighting goes on for months. The great library district burns, and in January, at the Nile, the boy's army finally breaks. He gets onto an overloaded boat with men clawing to get in, and the boat goes down. They find him later in the mud. They know it is the king because of the gold breastplate he is wearing, which is also the reason he never came up. 15 years old, in armor worth a village at the bottom of his own river. 1. Cleopatra sailed back into Alexandria on Caesar's arm, and the crowds came out to see her. She was, at that point, still married to the next brother in line. He was 12. Blood on holy ground. Her sister was called Arsinoe, and Arsinoe had done something unforgivable. She had almost won. While Cleopatra was locked in the palace with Caesar, Arsinoe got out of it, walked into the Egyptian army camp, and let the soldiers proclaim her queen. She was a teenager. For a few months, there were 2 queens of Egypt on opposite sides of the same siege, and one of them was directing the war against Rome. Then her side lost. Caesar took her to Rome alive for the parade. In a Roman triumph, the prisoners walk in front of the general's chariot in chains so the city can look at what was defeated. And at the end of the route, the important ones are usually taken aside and strangled. The crowd was ready for that. Then they saw her. Cassius Dio records what happened next. A young girl in chains of a royal house walking through a foreign city to be killed. The crowd that had come to enjoy it pitied her instead, loudly, and Caesar decided it was politically smarter to let her live. She was sent to the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, sanctuary, holy ground, and a law of protection older than Rome itself. She lived there for 6 years. Then Mark Antony came east, met Cleopatra, and fell into the affair that would kill them both. And one of the first things he did for her was send soldiers into the temple. They took Arsinoe off the sanctuary steps and killed her there. The Greek world was appalled. Blood on the steps of Artemis was a crime against a goddess, and the priest who had sheltered her was nearly executed too. Antony had never met the girl. He had no quarrel with her. There was exactly one person in the world who could not sleep while a spare queen was alive across the water. 2. The room where she took notes. That leaves the last brother, the 12-year-old she was married to. He grew. That was his mistake. For 3 years he was a signature next to hers, a child on a throne. Then, in Rome, on the 15th of March, 44 BC, 23 senators cut Julius Caesar to pieces in the Senate House, and everything Cleopatra had built ran through a dead man. She had one asset left. A 3-year-old boy she said was Caesar's son. For that boy to rule, the chair beside her had to be empty. It was occupied by a 15-year-old who was legally her husband, legally her equal, and growing into a man who could sign things without her. Within weeks of Caesar's murder, the 15-year-old was dead. The historian Josephus states it flatly. Cleopatra poisoned him. He wrote generations later, and this family attracts hostile gossip like meat attracts flies, so historians hold it loosely. What nobody argues about is the sequence. Caesar dies, the boy dies, the 4-year-old is on the throne within days. And there is one more thing in the record that makes the poison story hard to shake off. Plutarch says that Cleopatra kept a collection of poisons and that she tested them on prisoners already condemned to die. Not once, as a routine. She wanted to know which drugs killed fast, and she saw that the fast ones hurt. She wanted to know which ones were painless, and she saw that the painless ones were slow. So she moved on to animals and had venomous creatures set on people while she watched. She did it daily, Plutarch says, and she watched with her own eyes. Picture the room: a queen, a table, a man in chains who was going to die anyway, and a woman writing down how his face changed. The brother was not the reason. She was looking for the gentlest way out of the world for herself. She found it, filed it away, and went back to running a country. 3 deaths, 3 siblings, and she is not yet 30. Now for the 2 men who did get into her bed, and what Rome decided to do about it. The Whore Queen. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony. That is the entire documented list for a life of 39 years. Both were years long. Both produced children she claimed in public. Both were alliances with whichever Roman happened to be holding the world at the time. 2 in a lifetime. Now the men who wrote about her. Caesar, the adulterer his own troops sang about. Antony, whose affairs were extensive enough that Octavian mocked him about them in a letter that still exists, and who was married to somebody else in Rome for most of the years he spent with her. Rome had a word for men like that. The word was men. For a woman who made 2 strategic marriages of state and outmaneuvered both husbands, Rome needed something else. It reached for the oldest one in the drawer: whore. And it was not because she was chaste, and it was not because she was modest. Nobody has ever accused her of modesty. She and Antony ran a drinking club in Alexandria and gave it a name: the Inimitable Livers. Feasts every night, 8 wild boars roasting at once so a dish would be ready the moment the guests decided to eat. Pliny records that she bet Antony she could spend a fortune on a single dinner, took one of the largest pearls in the world out of her ear, dissolved it in vinegar, and drank it. Years later, with the world closing in, they renamed the club the Partners in Death. None of that is modest. None of it is prostitution either. It is a monarch spending like a monarch and enjoying every hour of it. So the whore was not an observation. It was a weapon, and we can date the day it was forged. 32 BC. Octavian is about to fight Antony for the Mediterranean, and he has a problem that could kill him. Rome is sick of civil war, and a war on Antony is a civil war. So he does not declare war on Antony. With full ceremony, in the ancient ritual kept for foreign enemies, Rome declares war on Cleopatra, on her alone, on a woman who has never invaded anything Roman. One sentence of ritual, and the whole thing changes shape. There is no civil war on paper. Antony is not an enemy, just a good Roman rotted from the inside by a foreign woman. Every legionary fighting for him is not a traitor, only a man who needs rescuing. But for that to work, she has to be dangerous in one particular way. A general is no good to him, because losing to a general is respectable. She has to be dangerous the way a drug is dangerous. The poets got paid. Horace calls her a fatal monster, drunk, plotting ruin for the empire. Propitius gives the age its favorite phrase, Meretrix Regina, the whore queen. The soldiers repeat it, the historians write it down, the school books inherit it, and 4 centuries later a Roman clerk, compiling famous lives, writes the sentence this whole video started with, because by then everybody simply knew. He was not lying. He was quoting the water everyone had been drinking for 400 years. Ropes through a window. 2nd of September, 31 BC, Actium. Their fleet is broken, and they run. 10 months later, Octavian is outside Alexandria. Antony's cavalry rides over to the other side. His infantry follows. He goes back into the city, into the palace, and somebody tells him the queen is dead. She is not. She has locked herself into her own half-built tomb with her treasure, gold, pearls, ebony, cinnamon, and enough torches to burn all of it if the negotiation goes badly. And she has sent word ahead of herself, and the word is wrong. Antony asks his slave to kill him. The slave draws the sword, turns it on himself, and dies first. So Antony does it alone, and he does it badly. He opens his own belly and does not die. He lies on the floor bleeding, asking the people around him to finish it, and they run out of the room. Then the message comes that she is alive after all, inside the tomb. He has himself carried there. The doors are barred, and she will not open them because Octavian's men are in the streets. So they throw down ropes from a window, and Cleopatra and 2 servant women haul a gutted man up a wall by hand, and Plutarch says nothing was ever more pitiful than that sight. The ropes straining, the blood, the man reaching for her. She pulls him inside. He asks for wine. He drinks it, tells her to save herself if she can do it without dishonor, and dies on the floor of her tomb. Octavian's men get in through the same window, take her alive, and now everything depends on one question. What is she worth in a parade? The answer is everything. A Roman triumph needs a defeated enemy walking in chains, and he has spent a war telling Rome that his enemy is this woman. Without her, the parade is a lie. She asks for permission to visit Antony's grave. She goes back, bathes, dresses, has dinner brought. And then, in a guarded palace, with no knife allowed anywhere near her, the Queen of Egypt kills herself in front of a whole army. You know the version with the snake. A basket of figs, a cobra hidden underneath, a bite to the breast. Plutarch tells that story and then quietly takes it apart. No snake was found. Nobody saw one. The only marks on the body were 2 faint pricks on her arm. The breast was added by painters, 17 centuries of them, for reasons you can work out yourself. Strabo, the only writer alive at the time, gives 2 versions and refuses to choose between the snake and a poisoned ointment. And 1 cobra is a terrible way to kill 3 women. The venom is slow, it is agonizing, and the snake runs out of it. 3 quiet, composed deaths in 1 guarded room, first try, is not how that animal works. But a woman who spent years in a locked room testing poisons on condemned men, looking for the one that kills without a sound, is exactly how it works. The guards break in. She is on a golden couch in full royal dress, dead. 1 servant is already gone. The second, Charmian, is on her feet, swaying, fixing the crown on her dead queen's head. A soldier shouts at her, asking if this is well. She says it is extremely well, and fitting for a woman descended from so many kings. Then she falls too. A grave with no address. Octavian got the country. He did not get the parade. So he cleaned the board instead. Caesarion, 17 years old, Caesar's blood son, had been sent south towards the Red Sea with a fortune and a tutor. Somebody talked him into turning back. He was caught and killed on Octavian's order, and the advisor who argued for it left behind 1 line: too many Caesars is not a good thing. Her 3 children by Antony walked in the triumph instead, in chains in front of an effigy of their dead mother with a snake on it, because he had to parade something. Egypt became Octavian's private property. He became Augustus. And then the last move, the quiet one. He let the tomb disappear. Plutarch says she was buried with Antony, with royal honors, in the tomb she built. He does not say where, neither does anybody else. No ancient author names the place, no pilgrimage ever formed, no traveler in 2,000 years claims to have seen it. The most famous woman of the ancient world has no grave. Part of that is the sea. The royal quarter of Alexandria slid under the water centuries ago, and most archaeologists think she is somewhere below the harbor, under 20 feet of water and 2,000 years of silt. One archaeologist thinks everyone is digging in the wrong city. Kathleen Martinez was a criminal lawyer in the Dominican Republic. She built a theory, talked her way into a 2-month permit, and has now spent 20 years at a ruined temple called Taposiris Magna, 30 miles west of Alexandria, arguing that a hunted queen who called herself the goddess Isis would be buried on holy ground out of Octavian's reach. For years the professionals shrugged. Then the trenches started producing. Coins with her face, a cemetery of mummies turned to face the temple, and in 2022, a tunnel cut through solid rock, 40 feet down, running almost a mile from under the temple, straight towards the sea. In 2025, divers went where it points and found a drowned harbor. Columns 20 feet high, buildings, anchors, wine jars from her dynasty, a whole port standing on the seabed. A temple of Isis, a mile of tunnel, and a sunken harbor at the end of it. Either that is the outline of the greatest tomb discovery in history, or it is three coincidences stacked on top of each other. Martinez is still digging. Trust the money. So, who did Cleopatra really kill? A brother in the river, a sister on the temple steps, a brother at the dinner table. Some number of condemned men in a locked room whose names nobody wrote down. Not one lover on the list. Both of her lovers were killed by Romans, and one of them died in her arms with his own stomach opened. She was not a seductress who destroyed men. She was a killer who was very good at politics, in a family where the alternative to killing was dying, and she lost anyway to a colder man with a better press office. Rome could not say that out loud. Being beaten by a woman with an army and a mind was unbearable. Being bewitched by a whore was survivable. So they wrote her the other job, and every century since has renewed the contract. The one witness who never signed it is her own money. Silver from her own mint, her own face on it, approved by her while she lived. The nose is hooked, the chin is sharp, the jaw is set like a decision. It is the face of a chancellor. When the legend and the money disagree, trust the money. One last thing. One child got out. Her daughter, Cleopatra Selene, walked in that parade in chains, was married off to a client king in North Africa, and instead of vanishing, she ruled for 20 years, put Egyptian symbols on her own coins, and named her son Ptolemy, the last Ptolemy in history. He was murdered 70 years after Actium by his own cousin, the Emperor Caligula, who wanted his money. The family talent for dangerous relatives never left the bloodline. Thanks for staying to the end. A like and a subscribe do the real work of pushing this channel, and they buy the time to make more of these. And if you leave a comment, make it longer than 6 words. Short ones count for almost nothing, and a real sentence is the cheapest way you will ever push a video at a stranger. Nobody here is going to read you a list of facts you could look up in a minute. Every story is a thriller. This was Elder Wen. See you.